Hey, I'm Courtney Waterman, your tutor. Lover of anime, manga, and math. And you just tuned into another session of Tutor Me Sempai. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into a 7th grade topic, vertical angles. If you're new to my channel, I'll be putting timecodes in for this video in the description box below. So use that to skip ahead to whatever part of the video you think is most interesting. As always, if you have any questions about what we see here today, or even your own homework, you can always put in the comment box below, or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. Today's video will be a rather short one, so leave a like, smash that subscribe, and let's get started. Today we're not only going to be finding some vertical angles, we're going to be talking about 4 things that are true about vertical angles. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the fact that vertical angles are formed by 2 straight lines intersecting each other. Once again, vertical angles are formed when 2 straight lines intersect each other. The second thing is vertical angles share the same vertex. So they have a vertex in common. They share the same vertex. The third thing that's true about vertical angles is that they do not share a common side. And the last thing is vertical angles are congruent. Now, what is this last one? What does it mean to be congruent? Well, if you saw my last video on this topic, I made a video on congruent angles. You would know that congruent angles are 2 angles in which they have the same measure. If 2 angles have the same measure, they're considered to be congruent. So that means that vertical angles, since they're congruent, have the same measure. So now that we talked about the 4 things that are true about vertical angles, let's find us some vertical angles. Let's look at our first example. Can we tell which pair of angles are going to be vertical angles? Now, here's a quick refresher. We're going to be using the notation for angles to be something like this. So we have angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D. We want to find the pair of angles that are going to be vertical angles. And we're going to write them up here. However, we need to remember what makes vertical angles vertical angles. What are the 4 things that are true about vertical angles? So first, let's analyze what we have here. Do we have the very first thing that we talked about? 2 lines intersecting each other. Yes, we have line 1 here, and we have line 2 here. So it seems like we're already on the right track. How about the second one? We need to have what? Well, vertical angles have the same vertex. Well, what is a vertex? Well, that's going to be where these lines meet. So yes, these angles, all 4 angles, share the same vertex. How about that next one? The next thing that's true about vertical angles, that was they do not share a common side. So we have angles that are formed by 2 lines intersecting, A, B, C, and D. All of that is true. We have angles that share the same vertex, A, B, C, and D. All of it is true. But now we have to see which angles do not share a common side. If you look at angle A, does it share a common side with angle B? Yes, this side here is common for both A and B. So A and B are not going to be vertical angles. How about angle D? Does angle A share a common side with angle D? Yes, this right here is going to be the common side. So A and D are not vertical angles. How about C? Do A and C share a common side? No. You see, this and this make up angle A, and this make up angle C. No side is the same. So we know that angle A and angle C are going to be vertical angles. And since A is vertical to angle C, we know that C is not going to be vertical to B and D. However, B, what angle is vertical to B? You guessed it, angle D is going to be vertical to angle B. So you see, when we have 2 lines that intersect, it creates 2 pairs of vertical angles. But now you might be thinking, Courtney, we found our vertical angles and we didn't even need that fourth property of vertical angles. Yes, that's true. That fourth property doesn't really tell you how to find your vertical angle, but it does tell you some very important information about your vertical angle. Let's say you knew that angle A was 60 degrees. Now we know because angle A and angle C are vertical angles, we can find C. What is the measure of angle C? Well, we're going to have 60 degrees as well. And this is going to be true here. This is going to be 120 degrees. And do we know what D is? Yes, because B and D are vertical angles to each other, we know they share the same measure. So D is also going to be 120. So now you've seen all four properties of our vertical angles, and not only were we able to find them, we also able to find what their actual measures are if we have one angle. Let's look at another example. In this example, we also have four angles: angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D. We want to find out which pairs, if any, are vertical angles. Let's go through our criteria again. We need to have two straight lines intersecting each other. Do we have that? Yes, we have 1 and 2. Two lines intersecting each other. However, it looks a little weird, right? But notice they still are two straight lines and they are intersecting each other. Let's move on. What is our second property of vertical angles? Well, they share the same vertex. Do we have the vertex here being shared by our angles? Yes, all four of these angles share the same vertex. How about the next one? They do not share a common side. Angle A, does it share a common side with angle B? Yes. So angle A is not going to be a vertical angle with angle B. How about angle D? Once again, no. Because it shares a common side, it's not going to be a vertical angle with angle D. Angle C seems like it's going to be our winner again, which means that angle B and angle D again are going to be vertical angles. So you see, it doesn't matter how your picture looks. It doesn't have to be the same length line. It doesn't even have to be a perfect X. As long as you have two straight lines intersecting each other, whether you're all the way down here, all the way up here, or somewhere in the middle, you're going to do it the same exact way. Now, if I was to tell you that this was 110 degrees, can you find the rest of these angles? Angle B is going to be 110 degrees. What is angle D? Well, if angle D is the vertical pair of angle B, we know that these are going to be congruent. So angle D is also going to be 110 degrees. And since B is going to be 110 degrees, A has to be 70, because these are what? These are going to be supplementary angles. And I've made a video on complementary and supplementary angles that you can check right up here if you need a little bit more help. But because they're supplementary angles, they have to combine equal 180. So that's 110, and that was unknown, but if they combine have to be 180, that has to be 70. So little tidbit of information, but now that we know angle A, can we find angle C? Well, angle C is going to be congruent to angle A, thus angle C also has to be 70 degrees. Or you could have used the supplementary rules because it has to be 180 down here, but we're focusing on vertical angles. Because we know that these two are vertical, they're congruent, therefore if we have this measure, we have that measure. Let's look at one more example. In our last example, we have something like this. And we want to find out which pairs of angles, if any, are going to be vertical angles. So we look at this and we have to look at our very first criteria. Do we have two straight lines intersecting in order to form our angles? Now you might be tempted to say yes here. However, let's count them. How many straight lines do we see here? Well, we see 1, we see 2, and we see 3. Whoa, we have more than 2 straight lines here. We have 3 straight lines. This line goes all the way here. this line goes here, and this line goes here. This is not one line, or at least not one straight line, because we have that bend here. Therefore, because we have this bend here, we know that these are not going to be vertical angles. None of these are going to be vertical angles. Although it looks like these could be, opposite each other, they do share a vertex. They're opposite. They don't share any sides. Likewise for these, because we don't have two straight lines intersecting to create all four of these angles, we do not have vertical angles. So don't fall into this trap. You might see something like this on homework or maybe tests, or maybe you would have, let's say, if this continued, I'm gonna try to be as honest as possible here. If this line continued, this can be a very good question. You might have all of these. Now, this would be your second line that you have to worry about, right? 1, 2, and you might have this shoot off line here. And you might be tempted to say, well, if this is that, D and E might be vertical angles, or maybe D and B might be vertical angles, but that's not the case. Remember, you're going to be looking at the angles formed by these two lines. So if you don't have two straight lines, none of your angles are going to be vertical angles. So I hope you're able to follow along with today's examples, and I hope you see that vertical angles don't have to be that difficult. As long as you know the 4 things that are true about vertical angles, you should be able to find them whenever you have your two lines crossed. However, if you have any questions about what you see today, or even your own homework, you can always put them in the comment box below, or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. If you haven't done so already, remember to leave that like. It really helps the channel by letting YouTube know that you found this video helpful. And if you found it helpful, so can someone else. So leave a like, smash the subscribe, hit the notification, and while you're at it, share this video with a friend. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I really hope it's helped with your homework, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Courtney, and this is another session of Tutor Me Sempai.